Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a video on the Doctor Who story, The Silver Nemesis. Before I fully get into this review, it's the 23rd of August 2023, and I'm also going to go through the packaging first. I did check before doing this review that if I've reviewed this story already on the channel, and I haven't. So that's good. You've got Sylvester McCoy there, weirdly in his brown coat as opposed to his white coat, which he is in this series, and/or serial even. Sylvester McCoy years 1987 to 1989. PG. You've got McCoy there in the middle. Sophie Aldridge with the slingshot, some Cybermen, Nemesis statue thing, the neo-Nazi guy who I can't remember the name of, and Windsor Castle. Doctor Who, Silver Nemesis, BBC, DVD, all on the front. You've got Doctor Who, Silver Nemesis, BBC, 2 Entertain on the spine. On the back you've got the row of images for screenshots for the story, the bio of the story itself, special features, and the runtime and directors and original airing dates and whatnot. And then you've got the disc, which is just a cropped image version of the cover. You've got the writer's notes here, as well as the booklet and the writer's notes there. And then now I will go over my thoughts on Silver Nemesis, which I just watched just before doing this review. I really like this story. Well, I don't think it's the best story ever, but I don't think it's as bad as I remember it being. Back in the day, I think I probably really didn't like this one, but to be fair, you've got to take into consideration that when I started getting into classic Doctor Who back in like 2007, I think it was, or 2008, 2007-8-ish, it was partway through, I think it was either, sort of Series 3 or Series 4 of New Doctor Who, so I would have still been in primary school then, so, you got to think, like, for me, a lot of older Doctor Who was, even though it was accessible in the sense that you had them on the DVDs, in a format that was accessible, in my mind it wasn't accessible, I guess. I don't know. I mean, and maybe that's why I like Tom Baker's Doctor the most of the classic Doctors, and or just of all the Doctors, I guess, because those stories felt the most accessible, with them only being 4-parters, and him being very sort of, well, not over the top, but very sort of engaging or entertaining. But McCoy is very entertaining, or pretty decent. Well, I don't even know if entertaining is the right word, but very assertive in this story. It feels like the reason why it's called Silver Nemesis is because it's for the 25th anniversary of the show. It aired on the 23rd of November, or around November, I think it said. When did it say? 23rd of November to 7th of December 1988, so it would have been 25 years, of the show at this point. Do I think that this is a good 25th anniversary of Doctor Who? Probably not. I'd honestly say, and I'm not just saying this because I prefer Daleks over Cybermen, but I'd probably say Remembrance is better overall celebration of 25 years of Doctor Who. But is this a good, fun runaround and a good Doctor Who story? Yeah, I would say it is. I think the Daleks, not the Daleks, the Cybermen even, are fairly hopeless in this, but it's cool that David Banks is still in the Cyberman role. I'm pretty sure he's in Attack of the Cybermen then, because that would make sense that he's in, Earthshock and Attack, and then subsequently the last Cyberman story of the classic series, which is this one, Silver Nemesis. But yeah, I think Sophie Aldridge is really good. Sophie Aldridge as Ace, I really like her. She's very sort of headstrong and very, again, assertive, I guess. Or she asks questions, but in a very sort of earnest way, like she's got that sort of late teenager sort of angst, I guess, about her, or sort of spunk about her, I guess. The Cyberman design is a bit too shiny and silver for my liking, I think, here. Although, I guess it is cool that the chest units are different, and they kind of have, like, this weird, like, silver, like, heart thing in them, which I think is kind of cool, but I've always thought, even these days. Even as a young person, I think I had this sort of thought subconsciously that like talk about an exposed, vulnerable weakness. You know, having your heart like quite literally on your sleeves, as it were, or in their case on their chest unit. You know, it might as well say, you know, shoot arrow here with like a massive pointy arrow pointing to the heart, the silver heart they have. They have some interesting guns, which I'll be honest, is a bit infuriating because when the character options toys were made, then they're a ball ache to have them hold those guns. I much prefer the Earthshock guns. I wish they'd have just kept them. I think they, if I'm not mistaken, in Attack of the Cybermen keep them for that. So why they changed the guns, I'm not sure. I think again, Sylvester McCoy's good in this. He's it's season 25, so he's already done quite a few stories at this point. I think he's found his foot into the role. It's very cool seeing him wear a fez, because then you're like, in retrospect, like, oh my god, what the hell, Matt Smith's the one who wears fez. Fez is not you. It feels very, I know Matthew Toffolo and Billy Garrett John, I think of Review of Death, they pointed out that this story kind of feels very Moffat-y in how it like jumps around different times and stuff. And I think that is a very good observation on their part. I would agree with that sentiment. And I think in that sense, it kind of gives the scale a sense of depth without, weirdly, the writers and directors and the people behind the scenes having to spend a lot of money, if that makes sense. It's like, they've got like 2 or 3 different locations, but because we're jumping around time, it feels like there's more, you know, and it feels like there's a bigger plot than there is. One thing that I feel like is kind of very reminiscent of Bad Wolf Pine of the Ways, maybe this is just a very loose connection I'm making here, but as an obsessive Doctor Who fan, but maybe it's not, I don't know, I'd be interested to know if Russell ever nabbed this from Silver Nemesis, but the Cybermen being cloaked but being above the earth, you know, that's very reminiscent of when the Daleks do that in Bad Wolf Pine of the Ways. But yeah, I mean, granted, in the previous serial, we've had Remembrance of the Daleks where the mothership is just above Earth's orbit. But the weird thing is, though, there, I think they can notice that that's there, but then there's a line from McCoy where he's like, oh, but even if you dropped a spoon, be able to analyse it from a hair, or hair's notice, or whatever, or a spider's notice, and then, you know, sterilise the whole geo-orbit of Earth. Isn't it scary to think of other species with the better capability or weaponry of making people dead? Or something to that effect, you know, to the army general. But anyway, enough about Remembrance of the Daleks. Lady Painful is pretty goddamn cool. I actually quite like the actress playing her, because she just descends into madness and I think kills herself at the end. That's never been very clear to me. You know, she just gets absorbed into Nemesis, I guess. You know, it's not the best ending, I don't think, for part 3. Like, the way that ends is a bit all over the place, I guess. It's a bit of a rushed conclusion, I think. But then again, this is only a 3-parter, so it only runs at about 74 minutes. So, in some ways, I think maybe you could watch this. If you've never watched classic Doctor Who, maybe this could be a good introduction, maybe. If you've only watched modern Doctor Who, if you've definitely watched sort of, I don't know, like all of Tennant and Smith, and then you want to go back, then I'd say this would be a decent one. I do love that line about like the Cybermen being like, this makes no sense, and or whatever, or this has no meaning, or whatever they say, and then it's like jazz, and it's like, well, it doesn't, it's jazz. It's like a run around, or like a fairground run around entertaining sort of thing around Windsor throughout the ages, so that's interesting, I guess. Kind of interesting history or historical building, I guess. Yeah, you've got neo-Nazis, you've got Cybermen, you've got jazz, and you've got Seven and Ace. What's not to like, in that sense. Yeah, I like there's allusions to like the Doctor being more than just a Time Lord, which again is very reminiscent of Remembrance. But it's a lot more clearer here, you know, and Lady Painful is one of the few people in the universe that knows the Doctor, like the actual name of the Doctor, which is very interesting. I guess watching this in retrospect, with the new series, again Moffat being very sort of, for lack of a better term, obsessed with like who is the Doctor Who question mark, which obviously this era of the show is sort of renowned for trying to bring back the mystery of Doctor Who question mark who, and that, because it ends with Ace even saying like, but Doctor, who are you? And then he just like, puts his fingers over his lips and he's just like, shh, to the audience and winks, to the audience, and then the credits roll. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of cheeky and meta in that sense. I do love how the story starts with them listening to jazz at a jazz performance, and there are just two blokes with like giant headphones that no one suspects are the bad guys. Like no one suspects them at all, and no one even comments, "Oh, there's no screaming," or no like if though all of the people from the jazz thing left, because that just baffles me and makes me laugh. Like no one even questions the fact that the Doctor and Ace are getting shot at by these two people with massive headphones that aren't clearly listening to the jazz performance. So I always find that kind of funny. Yeah, it's weird. It's like Silver Nemesis is not a Doctor Who story I go back to all of the time, but when I do watch it, I think I enjoy it. Or the last few times I've watched it, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think McCoy is definitely up there now. I'm getting a new sense of appreciation for his Doctor. I think he brings a lot of depth to the role. I think he does a lot with a little, and I think he sort of really excels in being sort of quite assertive, quite confident and assertive. Like when he's shouting at the Cybermen, to let Ace go. If you don't let her go, I'll destroy the bow. That bit. And very cunning, very devious. It does feel like he's playing this game of chess, which, does kind of come back, for lack of a better term, full circle when you get to Fenric and that, and there's a bit of a, for lack of a better term, new series, almost like arc, apparently, with the whole sort of way that Ace is introduced, and then Nemesis gets referenced in Curse of Fenric, from what I remember, even though I haven't watched that story in years and years. I like the fact that when the TARDIS dematerializes, there's like a gust of wind, and then that like blows out the candles. A little thing like that's kind of cool. The neo-Nazis are just sort of there. All of that is funny when the main neo-Nazi that's on the cover, the leader, he is about to kill that parrot or whatever. That's just so dumb and so funny to me. I'd be interested to one day read the Target novelization of this story, because there's the whole thing, or controversial thing and funny thing of like, the writer pitched this story based off Doctor Who. What happens if Doctor Who is God? ? And JNT, John Nathan Turner, is just like, oh my god, you can do it, but don't say it. Like, whatever you do, don't say it. Otherwise, we will get #cancelled, or whatever the 1980s equivalent would have been back in the day, because, yeah, everyone and the mums would have just gone absolutely fucking mental. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a shame that this is the last outing for the Cybermen in the classic series, and it's a shame that this is technically, officially, the 25th anniversary of the show, because I think it's more of just a weird run around Windsor Castle, which is kind of cool. It's a nice historical / futuristic-y one with Cybermen. Part 1's cliffhanger's pretty decent. Part 2, I think, spoiler alert, but it's the reveal of the Cyber fleet, or the warships. So that's okay. And again, Ace is cool, and I like the dynamic between Ace and McCoy. They seem like they're a good duo already, and seem like they already have such a good on-screen and or off-screen chemistry, which hopefully is what translated or helped translate onto screen, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'd give Silver Nemesis an 8 out of 10. It's a really fun sort of a fun story. I like the music. The music's decent. It's quite loud, but the music is decent, and I love the special effects. By the special effects, I mean the pyrotechnic effects. There are so many explosions. Like when part of Windsor Castle gets blown up, I was just like, fucking hell, that's intense. That's like a lot of pyrotechnics there. And when the Cyberman ship gets blown up and that, with Ace and then trusty Nitro 9, or in the new series, the equivalent trusty kind of Nitro 999 or whatever they say in Power of the Doctor. But yeah, a well-earned 8 out of 10. If you haven't seen it, it's a good recommendation from me. Oh, it gets a thumbs up from me, Doctor Who Silver Nemesis. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate and subscribe to the channel.